We're off to Japan for a short series of true crime stories told to us by two preschool teachers living in rural Japan.
Just go with it, Jeff. It's part of our world tour.
We're previewing Japan Crime Desu.
That's on this episode of So Much Crime,
So Little Time. Hey, Dee, if you're ever on a flight to Japan, it's a long flight, you know what you could be doing?
What could I be doing?
Well, first of all, you could catch up on all the back episodes of So Much Crime, So Little Time. But it's such a long flight, you probably have some more time. So go over to patreon.com/SoMuchCrime, So Little Time. Get all of that content, extra content from the show, outtakes, extended time machines, all kinds of fun stuff. Before you know it, you'll be in Tokyo.
That sounds like a great use of my time on that flight. Thanks for the hot tip, Jeff.
That's patreon.com/SoMuchCrime, So Little Time. Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Dee, and in this episode, we'll introduce you to Japan Crime Desu.
Never heard of Japan Crime Desu? You're in the right place.
We're only going to introduce you to the podcast and talk about the first episode.
You'll also find a link to Japan Crime Desu in our show notes.
In our next episode, we'll discuss the whole catalogue, which is 4 episodes. But right now, we just want to decide if this is a crime that's worth your time.
All right, Dee, before we get to the crime story for today, I think we should hop in the time machine. So the crime we're going to talk about today happened in March of 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
Okay.
This is a song I might know.
I mean, I don't know what you listen to. They are an American band.
Okay.
American rock band from Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
So, okay. That's all I have for you.
Wait, in 2007, I think I was living in Colorado.
There you go. Maybe they were your neighbors.
Okay. I'm ready.
Step 1, you say, we need to talk. He walks, you say, sit down, it's just a talk. He smiles politely back at you. You stare politely right on through. Some sort of window to your right as he goes left and you stay right. Between the lines of fear and blame, you begin to wonder why you came. Where did I go wrong? I lost a friend somewhere along in the bitterness. And I would have stayed up with you all night had I known.
So, okay. 2007, Denver, Colorado. The only band that I know of that's from there is the Lumineers. But
hey,
is it the song?
Oh,
that's
no.
Not the song. No, I know. I would have known that one. I don't think I know this song. Do I know this song? You read that fast, which made me think you didn't have a lot of confidence that I was going to get it. Otherwise, you would have read it more slowly.
I had no confidence. Let him know that you know best, because after all, you do know best. Try to slip past his defense without granting innocence. They said innocence, but lay down a list of what is wrong, the things you've told him all along, and pray to God he hears you. And I pray to God he hears you. And where did I go wrong? I lost a friend. Grey's Anatomy? Big song?
No.
The Fray?
This is a song from Grey's Anatomy?
Mm-hmm. Have you heard of The Fray?
The Fray. I've heard of The Fray.
How to Save
2007. Okay. Yeah. All right. I know that song. Okay. I got it now. Now that you told me the name of the band and the song and read all of the lyrics, now I get it.
I think it was interesting because it was 2005 that it was released, but it went to number 1 in Ireland for a week in 2007, which
took like a slow
I wonder
boat across the Atlantic.
Well, no, I think it went to number 1 before that, but I think I wonder was there a resurgence? Because 2007, it might have been along the same time as it was used in Grey's Anatomy.
I think I've seen 5 minutes of Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, you're missing out.
I don't think I am. All right, you ready for a game?
Go for it.
March of 2007, there were 2 very big movies that came out. One is a true crime related movie. I'm going to tell you what the movies
Ooh.
are. And then the game is I'm going to read you excerpts from reviews, and you have to guess which movie they're talking about of the two.
Okay.
All right. So, movie number 1 came out on March 2nd, Zodiac. About the Zodiac
Oh.
killer. The one with Mark Ruffalo, Robert Downey Jr.
Did
David
you ever
Fincher
see
movie.
it?
Yes. Have you seen it?
No.
It's an
I
excellent
don't like
movie.
serial killer movies.
Highly recommend. It's really more about the investigation. So it's about the newspaper and the police kind of investigating. There's not a lot of it's not particularly violent as I remember. I haven't seen it in a long time. Okay, that was March 2nd. On March 9th, Zack Snyder's movie 300 came out.
Okay.
Did you ever see that movie?
No.
Okay. I didn't either. But do you know what that one's about?
The future?
It's actually about the past. It's sort of
The
a true crime
past?
movie. It is based on a graphic novel, and it is about the Spartans. This is the
Oh, yeah,
Sparta
yeah.
movie. Yeah. The Battle of Thermopylae.
Indeed.
Sure. Anyway. All right. You ready? So
Yeah.
I'm going to read you a quote. You tell me, was this about Zodiac or was this about the movie 300? You're going to start easy and they're going to get harder. It would now seem that the notebook drawings of troubled teenage boys have been elevated to the status of, quote, high art. God save us all. Is that Zodiac or 300?
Jeez, I would think Zodiac, but it makes more sense, I think, for 300.
It's 300.
300.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you that one. All right. Ironically, rewards revisiting over and over while commenting on the spiritual degradation of doing so.
Zodiac?
Yep. Good. All right. I'm gonna say you're 2-0. More than any American
you're
movie.
going to say I'm 2-0. Like, I am 2-0.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that. More than
What are you giving me? I'm winning. I'm winning myself. You're not giving me anything.
All right, next one. More than any American movie of the past decade, this movie accepts and embraces irresolvability, which may be why it's so hypnotically rewatchable. We're still in the easy category.
Irresolvability is a big word. That makes me think of Zodiac.
Yeah, that's right. All right, you're 3-0. All
Okay.
right, this next one. This movie is an orgy of gore. A bloodletting on a titanic scale, a ballet of butchery in which half-naked men and the torrents of blood they elicit move in perfect slow-motion choreography to a thunderous soundtrack, and I loved every minute of it.
That's definitely 300, I'd say, but that's
It is.
not a review that I would.
I just wanted to read that
expecting
one.
you to say.
I thought it was funny. All right, let's get a little harder.
Okay.
You're 4-0.
Okay.
From the visual and technical standpoint, yes, it's fantastic. But art has always been about more than just technique, more than just the sum of its parts. And that more is where this movie falls short.
300.
No, that was Zodiac. Yeah. Okay. 4-1. There is an intelligent movie to be made about this event, but this movie is not it. It is a fun ride, though, as long as you don't see it on a full stomach.
300.
Yep. All right. That's good.
Give me one more. One of the hard ones.
Okay. Despite a crackling central premise and outstanding visuals, this movie ultimately leaves you feeling more gutted than some of the dead people on display throughout the movie.
Is that Zodiac?
No, that was 300.
Oh.
Yeah,
God.
that could have been either one, right? That was a tough one.
Yeah. I'm
All
glad
right.
it wasn't Zodiac, actually.
Yeah, that actually doesn't happen in Zodiac. So, all right, you did pretty well. Pretty well.
Woo! Until next time. Alrighty. Let's jump back out of that time machine.
That was our time machine. Thank you. All right, so we're talking about Japan crime deaths today. This podcast came out in 2021 and 2022. Our hosts are Tamoko and Christi. Their full names are Tamoko Ishida and Christi Lynn Jordan. There were 4 total episodes released, plus a short bonus one, and the episodes range from about 20 minutes to about 45 minutes each. And this time we're just talking about the first episode, which is each one is a standalone story. So Dee, what is this first one we're talking about here today about?
Yeah, so this first episode is about Lindsay Hawker, a 22-year-old student from England. She was murdered by Tatsuya Ichihashi. Ichihashi eluded police for 2.5 years, even getting some cosmetic surgery done along the way. He was eventually captured and sentenced to life in prison. Whew, Jeff, let's have a chat about this one.
Yeah. So, yeah, Dee, what do you think
I think we
about
need to
this?
start off by just reminding ourselves and reminding anyone listening that this is their first ever podcast episode that we're reviewing here. So we have to kind of bring that in mind. You know, there's a lot of things that you learn from recording your first podcast. I remember it very well when we did our first episode, and I know there's lots of things I would do better if we were going back to record it now. So I just want to say that off the bat.
Sounds like you're building up to something a little critical.
Well, I feel like this podcast was similar. The two that came to mind were Black True Crime and Black Girl Gone. Or maybe even Sisters Who Kill, like that kind of, we're just narrating kind of quickly narrating a story and telling you some facts.
Yeah.
But then we have two people involved here, which we don't have that in Black Girl Gone, kind of discussing the crime. My first gripe with this podcast is I feel like the balance between the hosts is completely off. It's mainly Christi we hear from. Even when Tamoko is trying to get a sentence in, I think Christi jumps in to tell the story. I don't know what their prep work was. I don't know like how they've discussed that dynamic. It's something you and I have spoken about quite a bit. You know, allowing the other person to speak and also being able to jump in and chat so that conversation flow is clear. So I understand it's hard, especially as someone who just like talks all the time.
I'm just sitting here patiently waiting for my turn to speak.
Oh, indeed you are. Yeah, that's you all right. Go on.
Yeah. So Christi is essentially the play-by-play, which, yeah, we saw this in, I think it was Black True Crime most similarly. And then Tamoko is kind of doing the color commentary. Tamoko kind of gives us the Japanese perspective, like explaining Japanese culture, terms, things like that, but really doesn't get to talk a lot in this. It's mostly Christie's show, I think. And that, yeah, the balance is definitely off here. I think in other shows we listened to like this, it was more, we've listened to other shows where it is that similar dynamic of one person tells the story and the other person kind of offers commentary. This one just, I think the overall, like if you were to chart out the minutes of how much each person talks, it's probably like 80-20. I don't know.
Yeah, but this isn't like the other shows where it's someone saying it and the other person's like reacting. Like we've seen that before where the other person's like, oh, and then like what happened with this and blah blah blah, and they are like being the audience as such to react to the parts of the story they're finding most interesting. We're not seeing that here. We're seeing Tamoko add in bits, as you said, like from the Japanese perspective. But we don't get enough of it. Like that's what I was kind of hoping for in going when I found this podcast and when we were jumping into it, that we would get more of that Japanese perspective. And I just don't think she was given the chance, the airtime to actually speak about that, or maybe that was the whole setup. Is like, let's not go too much into the Japanese side of things because they are covering a lot of plot.
I think that's right. And I think that's what's so promising about this show, is that it is such a great idea, and it's a great conceit for a show. And it particularly when, one of our stated goals for this year was to get to more places in the world that we didn't cover in 2024. And, Japan is a place we haven't been to with a show before. And I feel like there's a lot of crime stories in Japan, and there's also like it's culturally very different from where both you and I are from, and so there's a lot to learn. I think there's a lot of things to learn about. I think when we did get that, because we got that a few times in this, and we can talk a little bit about the story, but there's a handful of things in here that I thought really interesting. I just wish they'd spent more time on it. And this is a bizarre story. It's a
bizarre story.
There's an element of it's the kind of standard white woman getting murdered story, but it takes some real twists. And you alluded to, I think, maybe the most interesting one of when Ichihashi is on the run for 2.5 years. He's getting kind of a series of plastic surgeries, cosmetic surgeries to alter his appearance. And like how he manages to do that for 2.5 years is is crazy.
Yeah, really wild. And even like I think even going back from that, so there's a few points I think if we're okay with like landing in on like the Japanese point of view and the things that I found quite interesting or that we found kind of interesting hearing here and maybe things that we felt were lacking was for example when Lindsay was cycling on her bike trying to get away from this guy who's followed her off the train. They're just talking about him running beside her.
Yeah.
And they talk about how, look, Japan is safe. They kind of keep saying that.
Yeah.
But there's no mention or no like bridge drawn, say from Christie's point of view, being like, if this happened in America, like this is not a safe situation. And like listeners, we have to like remember we're in a Japan now. So like this might be kind of shocking, but it's not shocking in this scenario. It felt like there was no mention of how intimidating that might be. We've spoken about it time and time again, how different vibe if there's a man cycling a bike and a woman running beside him versus the other way round. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt that was missing there. And even just saying Japan is safe, I feel like they could have leaned into that a little bit more and said, like, this is, whatever area they're in, like there was no crime, there's no precedent for this, like this would have happened, like this would be a common occurrence. They did say how people staring is quite common, especially in that area at that time. But this following thing, I was like, kind of shocking. And then Lindsay invites him into her house to have a glass of water. Like there's just so many elements that I would like to hear from the Japanese perspective. Like, this is very commonplace, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just don't feel like we got that connection.
Yeah, I started to write down things that I saw as red flags in this story, and there are many. I mean, you just touched on one of them where she's basically trying to get away from him, and she's on a bike and he's running after her, and then she invites him in, and while he's in her place, he draws this picture of her and writes his name, his phone number, and have you seen the picture? We'll post this on Instagram and all the social medias, and his email, which is whitelover@hotmail.com.
I mean, even Tamoko was like, what is this? Like, he's obviously into white women. This is so, yeah. Oh, God.
But then,
it was a really horrendous story, I have to say.
Well, and then the other thing is, so he ends up getting her to his apartment like several days later, and that's where she gets murdered. And the neighbors report this, or her roommates report her missing. And this is where we learn that in Japan, privacy is so protected that the police basically can't even knock. Like they go to his apartment and they just like wait outside for him to come out, which
yeah, I didn't get this. And then didn't they get another piece of evidence or something? But so they called back up and then they were still not allowed to knock?
They got evidence that he had some type of criminal event in his past.
Oh, yeah.
So they called for backup. Exactly what you said. They still don't knock. They still are just there's just more police standing outside. But then when he does come outside, he manages to get away. And there's at least like 7 cops out there.
But they're not allowed to like detain him because they don't have enough on him to detain him. And I'm like,
yeah.
Maybe you have on him that he's running away from you.
And I don't know.
And maybe this is just coming from like a very biased or Western mindset of like, you get the guy, you talk to the guy, and then you decide if he's like involved or not.
Yeah,
so if you have enough reason to have 7 police outside.
I feel like if we learn anything from the American or the Irish police tactics is they'll arrest you first and then figure out if they actually meant to arrest you later.
Yeah.
It seems like it's very different in Japan.
Very different, which not that it's a good thing in America or Ireland.
Sure.
For the most part, but like, yeah, anyway. It seemed wild. But again, I don't feel like we got enough. Like, that is fascinating. That is not something I've heard before. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like what I'm hoping for as we look at the final 3 episodes, or we listen to the last 3 episodes in this, is that I hope that the balance is restored between the 2 hosts in future episodes. I also hope that they kind of, and this is a hard thing to do, but I hope they land. I hope they find a better footing with bringing in comedic value to this story. I feel like there was an issue throughout this story of jokes and giddiness around certain parts of it.
Yeah.
That didn't land well with me. It just didn't sit right with me. And I do think that's like an extremely difficult thing to do. I don't think even we always get it right, even because we're such masters. But I don't think we always get it right. I do think it is a difficult thing. But yeah. And my final thing, sorry, you were going to say something. I need to let you speak.
Well, I agree. I think I wrote down that it was very giggly in a way that I think there are. I mean, this is a thing we've talked about in the past, that there's a certain genre of true crime that is sort of flippant and giggly and kind of it doesn't take some of these crimes particularly seriously. But this is a very serious crime, and this is a very gruesome and tragic crime. And I think you're right. There was a tonal imbalance here between the crime, the story, and the way it was kind of handled, I think, which I think you're right. We've also, I think, struggled with that line at times. But to me, like, one of the things I took away from this was feeling like, oh, we as hilarious podcast hosts should take a note from this and think about, the things that we think were good here and the things that were less good, and try to do better ourselves.
Yeah. My final thing here is it's short and there's a lot in it, but it still felt kind of surface level in a way. I feel like they could have gotten more depth. And again, I'm coming from, like, we're obviously hosting a podcast where we're just reviewing other podcasts. Like, we don't get into the depths of it other than the snippets of discussion we have. But I think we've seen in other short podcasts that are covering one crime over an episode or two, they still manage to get this like feeling. Like, I feel like I didn't have I didn't have feelings listening to this, if that makes sense. And I feel like that surface level aspect is what we were getting here.
I think that makes sense. I will say, as maybe a closing thought, I didn't love this, but I also am interested to hear the other episodes, because I looked at what those other episodes are about. They're all about different stories. They're all very different stories from different points in time. And I just think the premise of this show is so interesting and so different from things we've heard before. And as we've said before, it's a real low time investment. I mean, all this to listen to all of the shows is maybe 2 hours of content. Yeah.
Love that. So have a listen, see if you agree. Let us know if you absolutely disagree with what we're saying, or if you think, that we are on the money. Also, let us know that, and join us next time when we dive into the rest of the episodes. Before we talk to you about next week's episode, don't forget to leave us a comment on Instagram, on Apple, on Spotify. Rate us, tell your friends. Really helps us to be more findable.
Next time, we're going to cover the other 3 episodes of Japan Crime Desu:
A Murderous Geisha, A Teenage Serial Killer, and The Red Room Curse. Ooh, I'm excited.
That's on the next So Much Crime.
So Little Time. So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of MimeGov Media. The executive producer is Paxton Calariso. Our associate producer is Blythe Tai. Theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show in your podcast app. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening.